And welcome viewers to the Daily Space Weather. The sun is lighting up like Christmas. Let's get to it. I believe we will be over 100 sunspots for the sunspot number by the time this sunspot up here gets named. It's pretty spectacular. There is a solar flare warning and a coronal mass ejection warning in place, as we've got the most activity we've seen during cycle 25. So we've got a bunch of additional views for you here. And the news on our channel is this new sunspot rising. It's just as likely to produce major flares as any of those located in the south. So here are the magnetic fields of the southern portion, and our regular viewers are well aware that magnetic fields govern stellar behavior, not just in our local yellow dwarf here, known as the Sun, El Sol, Helios, etc., but all stars. And part of heliophysics is helping to understand cosmology and vice versa. So we've got some activity up here as well. Again, we're going to be over 100 sunspots today. So it's a great opportunity to view the sun in various different wavelengths here. Now we're seeing some brightness showing up at this new sunspot group in ionized carbon, 1600 angstroms from the SDO. So all the wavelengths are going to come into play, folks. This portion of the ultraviolet spectrum is associated with fusion happening right there before your very eyes. Those white spots are a bunch of carbon likely being created through nuclear fusion. Now this is ionized iron. This takes 10 images per minute instead of only 2 images per minute, 94 angstroms, along with 131 angstroms. Are specifically to look at solar flares. This is 171 angstroms, the low corona. Iron 9, I believe, is the ion there. So spectacular imagery today. We'll close out the intro imagery here at 94 angstroms before we blast through a bunch of other interesting information. So the radio flux is now up to 103, I believe. Talk about a massive and precipitous uptick. There you go. There's the 1-year chart. The black line there is the radio flux. Again, sunspot number is going to be up here. Over 100 today, as that new group has a massive series of umbrae, and we're going to show you those in high res toward the end of the video. Stay tuned for that. And here's the Space Weather Enthusiast dashboard forecasting no solar storms at the moment. Again, expect radio blackouts and coronal mass ejections and solar flares, which will be inducing those radio blackouts. Here's your 90-day bar graph for seismic activity. And part of the reason that we cover seismic activity is one of the ways that we actually study what's going on foreign bodies like the moons of Jupiter, for example, is to look at their volcanic activity. So we view on this channel various different things from sort of a long view perspective, right? Anyway, there's a 90-day graph. The largest quake of the past 24 was a 5.7 at Timor-Leste. Otherwise, no real severe earthquakes. Another one happening there in the center of the country. It looks like it's around Kansas or something like that. We won't worry about that too much. There's too much other stuff to cover. There'll be a cosmology segment today as well. It'll be showing up after the Daily Space Weather video. So make sure you join us for that premiere. Or go view it if you've watched in syndication. Kermadec Island saw a 4.7. There was a volcanic uptick. We'll get to that in a minute. Deep quake at Indonesia came in about an hour before we recorded this video. That was a 5.1 at nearly 400 kilometers depth. Not too far from that 5.7 at Timor-Leste. Looking at volcanoes, again, a bit of a volcanic uptick happening here. Subanoce-jima produced a Volcanian explosion. They say small. It's enough to produce a 9,000-foot ash column. So some phreatic eruption happening there also, as there is steam coming out of Subanoce-jima. Please don't square dance the caldera. Manam, located in Papua New Guinea, now on the list as well. 8,000-foot ash plume from Manam as it explodes. Rupahu on the North Island of New Zealand. characterized by typical heating-cooling cycle over the past months. Modeled heat flow into the lake is currently estimated at 250 megawatts, up from 50. So that's an uptick at the Rupahu North Island of New Zealand volcano. Sort of a long-term uptick. Fuego exploding, flight level 140. It's producing a 14,000-foot ash plume over Guatemala. Nevado del Ruiz exploding, 20,000-foot ash plume over Colombia from Nevado del Ruiz. Volcanic ash is dispersed from Sangay, that's located in Ecuador. However, there are some lava flows, some new geography being created in Ecuador by Sangay. Near constant Vulcanian-type eruptions. Please don't pole vault the caldera. Venador also exploding. Flight level 160 there, another Ecuadorian volcano there. 16,000-foot ash plume from Venador. And Sabancaya, 23,000-foot ash plume as it continues to explode over Peru. Flight level 230 from Sabancaya. Please don't pole vault the caldera. Please do visit our links. You may still have enough time to get these as Christmas presents. I'm not sure. And today's featured product is the Do Not Pole Vault the Caldera products. Go check that out. By the way, we are apolitical on the channel. If you're offended by something we've said, you are probably political. We're not. I've never been affiliated with a political party, and I probably never will be. Other ways to support the channel is to become a member of the Smash team. smAsho.com/SmashTeam. There was a little teaser as to what gets posted there. The posts are public throughout the year 2021, and there will only be limited public posts starting January 1st. So happy holidays, everybody. We're providing a bunch of free posts for everybody. Yesterday was the Bill of Rights 230th anniversary. How do you think it's holding up? Anyway, welcome to the DR Renaissance. Visit the homepage. You can find links there to the Smash team and to the smAsho merch that we just showed you. Also, our mission. Part of the reason why we talk about space weather is because it's part of our mission. It also has economic implications and all sorts of other implications space weather does. If you want to read more about our mission, head to smAsho.com/forum, and I'll briefly go through it for you. It's to assist, study, and report on the ongoing formation of a unified theory of physics, to raise the awareness of the general public of the relationship between space weather and Earth effects, shout out to Tamitha Skov, to connect and consult with media organizations to multiply our reach. Hence videos like this, to demonstrate cutting-edge proof-of-concept solutions to problems, to publish scientific papers in a multidisciplinary manner, including various different sciences that relate to the mission. Next, to assist mankind by advancing the study of predictive phenomena to optimize value and reduce risk and liability and save lives and resources and adapt no matter what the adversity is. And also, number 7, quite important, to not be ossified in our beliefs. If you're ossified in your beliefs, you're not doing science. So we won't be ossified in our beliefs. And we'll treat those who are with love, respect, and inclusion to the scientific discussion, as sometimes it takes a while for folks to catch up. Again, you can find all of that at smAsho.com/forum. And let's get to some magnetic data, which we forecasted yesterday, by the way. We'll get to that in a minute. First, the GOES magnetometer. There's the last 3 days of readings from the GOES magnetometers, measured by the GOES 16 and GOES 17 in a near equatorial geosynchronous orbit. Next, the North Pole-oriented current sheet that we forecasted showing up yesterday near stereo A has indeed popped up as forecasted. Now, this has to do with understanding the magnetohydrodynamics of what this data represents and what the information on the sun is telling us about it. There's a North Pole current sheet headed this way. I'll just leave it there. That's the line of sight ecliptic plane field plot showing the polarity of the heliospheric current sheet. South Pole in red, North Pole in green. Here's a line of sight view. And again, understanding the physics is how we forecast things in the real world, folks. Understanding the physics. Cause and effect and correlation are not necessarily the same thing, are they? That's the line of sight ecliptic plane field plot. You can see all those sunspots rising in the east, especially in the southeast, but that new one in the north is certainly significant as well. Also, we see a coronal hole magnetic tug-of-war going on over here. You're going to see a North Pole coronal hole suddenly showing up south of the equator there, as there's a lot of intercalate gas escaping. I'll just say that. And here's a visual of that. This coronal hole up here is actually South Pole oriented. It's the solar polar field reversal happening before your very eyes. Just spectacular imagery in 193 angstroms from the SDO. So likelihood of major flares is very high, to the point where we have a radio blackout and solar flare warning in effect. Also a coronal mass ejection warning. Expect to see large flares. Expect to see radio blackouts, especially in places like around the equator at noontime. And radio blackouts are basically determined by the location of the sun overhead, as they interfere with refraction of signals at the ionosphere level. So yeah, this sunspot up here, this is going to be known as 2910, it looks like. We've got up to 2909, I think, there. So this is going to be 2910, and this is just as likely to produce major flares as any of these. It's something to keep an eye on, and when I say ion, well, pardon the pun. Here's some ionizing radiation in the form of X-rays, as measured by the GOES 16 and 17. And we've seen a bit of a calming. It's the calm before the storm, folks. There are major flares coming. You can bank on it. No spikes in the proton flux yet. Don't be surprised to see some. Accompanying radio blackouts. Relativistic particles. Let's check the real-time solar wind. Current conditions are about 530 kilometers per second for the speed. Still an increased speed here from the waning coronal hole wind stream. Solar wind density about 8.6. About 8.7, I'll say. Just under 9 protons per cubic centimeter for the real-time solar wind density. And now we're expecting an electron storm as well, so lots of stuff happening. KP index at 2. It's geomagnetic calm conditions. Let's take a look at the modeling for the geospace. This would be the earthly magnetic moment from space. Turned 90 degrees, so the left plane is the equatorial plane, as if you're looking at the planet from above. Dawn side at the top of the screen, dusk side at the bottom. And then if you turn the planet 90 degrees, the meridional plane, as if you're looking at the planet from the side, with north at the top and south at the bottom. It's 4 hours of data and fairly homogeneous magnetohydrodynamic pressure over the past 4 hours, most likely there. It's in nanopascal. This is in nanotesla. Magnetic flux density at the surface level. Earth's magnetic moment from Earth. And we do see some magnetic perturbations. There are probably some aurorae happening in the past few hours here. Like the last frame, that's 4 hours of data. So probably some Canadian aurorae happening there, as well as some power system induction from that coronal hole wind stream. And things are going to get jiggy, folks. Jiggy. Next, a diagram of the solar system. This is where stuff is now. If you're frightened of planets, please stop being frightened of planets. We get a lot of comments about people who are frightened of planets. Don't be frightened of planets. Thanks. Thanks in advance. Here's a solar system forecast as Mercury swings around. And Venus is making a pass as well. We should have some very bright views of Venus. Next, a star chart. And if you're up before dawn, you may see Mars rising ahead of the sun. We've also drawn in the galactic plane and the ecliptic plane here on in-the-sky.org, our star chart over the head of us here at Lehigh Valley, Pennsylvania. This is approximately what's going on. Mine faces the south as I'm facing the south. Let's take a look at the coronal mass ejection watch. We'll show you the view from Lagrange point 1, which will be on your right, and Lagrange point 5 stereo A, which will be on your left. And you can expect to see this light up. Check out the size of this suspended plasma out here. That's associated with those rising sunspots in the southeast. So there is a lot of stuff about to happen. And congratulations on realizing the channel exists. If you haven't checked out our cosmology segments, please do. Today's will be a separate video, which will premiere after this daily space weather video. Check our playlists for plenty more cosmology segments. At youtube.com/smashamash/playlists. We've got more data to blast through. We see some charging hazards here over the Central Pacific. There's the location of that. Let's just press refresh and make sure we're up to date. So indeed, some charging hazards over the South Pacific there, caused by things like electrons. And yeah, we've got electrons in some chaotic places at the moment. There's the 1-year chart. You can see despite being at low levels here, we're going to have some GPS errors in odd locations. So here's the 3-day chart of the electron flux. And while we are expecting an uptick, we're seeing some chaos in the organization of Earth's inner Van Allen belt. Anyway, that's the 3-day chart. Here is the forecast model, and you can see this precipitous uptick expected here. No surprises there. It's typically what we see after a coronal hole wind stream. And this has been a sort of a long one, but not super high speed and not a super dense shock wave at the front. So here comes a total electron content forecast. It'll give you the most likely places for GPS errors. You can see some major GPS errors there over North America and stuff. Also the Indian Ocean, the Southern Ocean, Antarctica. So some GPS errors there. We typically do see this at low levels of electron flux during coronal hole wind streams. Next, we'll show the ionosphere, and we're seeing some anomalies continuing there. Here's the anomalygram in vibrational frequency. Megahertz, millions of vibrations per second. And major anomalies around the Drake Passage here. Once again, we've been talking about the Drake Passage the last couple days. It's a real weird place. It's a place where the Atlantic and Pacific Ocean must reach equilibrium. There's a lot of water sloshing back and forth through there. I'll just leave it there. Let's look at the anomalygram as well. Here's the anomalygram. This is anomaly in megahertz from the 30-day median. So you can see those South Pacific anomalies happening there. There's a dry air mass actually over that portion of the southeastern Pacific. We're seeing big shifts from high to low frequency anomaly right around that area. West of the Drake Passage. Also some low-frequency anomalies over Hawaii in places. So anyway, that's your anomalygram. I'm not going to try to explain them all. It's for visual analysis. Here's the latest image. That's 12:45 Universal Time. Looks like a lot of low frequency at that moment, and indeed it is. Ionogram, anomalygram. Let's do bonus features. Bonus feature number 1 is the Cerro Tololo ground-based solar observatory. Again, showing massive solar activity. We've got a radio blackout warning. We've got a solar flare warning and a coronal mass ejection warning. In effect, it's all the warnings. If I could light up all of the lights, I would do it. But in any case, this is some quite recent imagery here from Cerro Tololo, Chile. Look at all the filaments around the northern hemisphere. Don't be surprised to see some of these headed to your doorstep. Next, the GOES 16 SUVI imagery, and we can already see some activity kicking off there. That is a coronal mass ejection happening as we make the video, right here. So how's that for a warning coming true? Yeah, it's all about forecasting, folks, and understanding the physics is the way it's done. Understand the physics, be able to forecast, otherwise, forget it. Next, the latest intensitygram and magnetogram. Yowzers. I think every one of these sunspots is beta class. Okay, that one there is alpha class. Those are all beta class, and check out the size of those umbrae and the complexity. There's all different magnetic fields mixed in there. It is quite ready. Again, there's a coronal mass ejection just happened. That one will probably miss Earth to the northeast. Who really knows? It's way too early to tell. We'll probably have to make another video about this later today. Again, don't forget to check out our cosmology segment. Check out the field complexity there. That is a serious line of serious sunspots. Yowzers. Again, it's a great time to be looking at the sun in all kinds of wavelengths like 1600 angstroms, which shows you ionized carbon being created right there in those lighter spots. We'll close out the video with close-ups in 171 angstroms. Again, all warnings in effect. Congratulations on realizing the channel exists. And may that solar wind be at your back. opinions expressed in this video, not necessarily the opinions of Smash News Network, Least Busted, Name and News.